Grid-based dungeon crawlers are a rare breed these days, often overlooked by gamers who set their sights on a more open-world experience. While we've seen somewhat of a small resurgence on Switch with Etrian Odyssey and Monu, I'm not going to pronounce the rest of that title, it does appear to be a dying or perhaps dormant genre. Earlier this month, it was announced by indie developer Almost Human that Legend of Grimrock would be released on the Switch. And now it's here. I'm finally getting to see what all the fuss is about. What's it like? Grab a pen and paper, dim the lights, and prepare to dungeon dive as we review Legend of Grimrock. Hey, before we dive into the dungeon, would you mind liking and subscribing? It really helps creators like me get found on YouTube. And if you like the video, why not share it with your friends? I can't thank you enough for doing so. Now let's start off by explaining to the younger ones what a grid-based dungeon crawler is as I grab my walking stick and reminisce about Eye of the Beholder. A grid-based RPG usually consists of your party moving as one from a first-person perspective around a map. You usually turn and face the direction you want to go in, and you move one grid forward at a time, solving puzzles and fighting bad guys. These games are also referred to as blobbers, as your team moves in a single blob. Yeah, I don't really like calling it that either. Legend of Grimrock is no exception to this rule, and it honors the old school approach while providing accessibility to newcomers to the genre. You can choose to have pre-built characters and a map, or you can go back to the 90s and rely on pen and paper and draw the dungeons yourself with your custom created D&D style characters. In Legend of Grimrock, you play as 4 prisoners, sent to their doom for unknown crimes that they may or may not be guilty of. Instead of being executed on the spot, which to me anyway, sounds like a much more efficient use of taxpayers' dollars, you are sent to the infamous Mount Grimrock to try your luck in the dungeon there. Should you escape, you will have earned your freedom. There's also an overarching narrative which appears in each level when you take a rest, further elaborating on your escape from Grimrock. The gameplay revolves around exploring a dungeon in the heart of the mountain with the objective of getting to the lower levels and earning your freedom. To do this, you will fight hordes of creatures ranging from huge snail creatures to centurion skeletons who can fight by themselves or gank you in a phalanx formation. Combat is handled by holding down the right trigger and pressing the corresponding buttons for each character to strike, await their cooldown, rinse, and repeat. Combat can be an exercise in frustration, as your characters miss more than they actually hit. It reminds me of the early stages of Morrowind. If you don't spec your character correctly, you end up just wildly swinging your weapon in the air, yet hit nothing. Spellcasting is also difficult, leaving you to fumble through runes and hope for the best. Once I started to learn what the runes meant, I was able to better use my sorcerer character, but I do wish there was a way to spam a spell without the runes coming up every time, which took me out of the immersion a little bit. There's not a lot of depth to the actual combat actions, but there is a fair amount of depth to your characters, stat points, and levels that will allow you to have a bit of freedom with your party makeup. Positioning is everything here, and you will want to keep your warriors to the front and casters and range to the back to protect them. You can get flanked too, so you need to be mindful of your positioning when it comes to picking a fight. I did have to reload a few saves due to poor party management, and sometimes it's best to eat, rest, and regroup before exploring further. There are blue crystals on each level of the dungeon that can revive fallen party members as well, so don't lose hope if you've downed someone during combat. Graphically, Legend of Grimrock looks great, and despite there being some pixelation, it runs at a steady and high frame rate, ensuring silky smooth exploring. Enemies are varied and the animation, while somewhat repetitive, looks great. It's a dark and brooding and atmospheric game, and it builds both immersion and tension. It's almost unnerving when you're creeping through the dark to see light up ahead. Is it salvation that awaits, or damnation? There are some shortfalls, like hidden buttons almost being too hidden, which led me running around in circles looking for what to do. But aside from that, the puzzles are fairly straightforward for the most part, with some tricky ones thrown in the mix to delay your escape for a while. I think my one major complaint is not being able to transfer items directly to other players, meaning you have to drop an item, then select that party member, and then pick up said item. There's also no touchscreen support, which is a shame because I think it would have added a lot to the immersion of being able to touch the buttons or pull the chains. It's not really a deal breaker, more something I hope to see in the sequel. But I did read a developer responding to gamers on a forum that said that this port was more like an experiment, almost dismissing the project, which is a shame because I think the Legend of Grimrock series would make a great home here on the Switch. All in all, Legend of Grimrock isn't going to be for everyone due to the genre, which may seem a little dated, especially to the younger gamers. But those who jump in will have an immersive and fun Dungeons & Dragons-like experience. There's plenty of game here for those who enjoy puzzlers, and at the price point of under $23 dues, it's good value for money. Legend of Grimrock is a trip to the past. It's a game that is atmospheric and engages your brain, encourages exploration, and it is hard to put down. So, what's it like? Legends of Grimrock is like a D&D session crossed with Etrian Odyssey. I award it a 78 out of 100. Thank you so much for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it. Because of amazing people like you, What's It Like is now my full-time job. I also do want to do a special shout out to my Patreons, S Hill, K Skip, and D Kite. I couldn't have done it without your support. Thank you.